Like I say, in this business, everybody always wants to
high cross body.
Here we go.
If you come at the king, you best not miss.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this contest, and new
Acknowledge us.
Hey, guys, we're here at the Red Carpet Ring. We'll talk about WWE NXT Stephanie Vaquer defends both titles. Let's get the likes as we come into the ring. We're going to also go over the NXT episode for March 25th. We also go over what happened on the show, grading, and then also go over the bonus round, which will be, is the NXT Women's Division overloaded? Check out much more here at the Red Carpet Ring. Let's talk about it. But let's go over the match card, shall we? Now the match card are as follows. We had three title matches. Stephanie Vaquer defended both the NXT Women's North American Championship and the NXT Women's Championship. And we had Lexis King defending the NXT Heritage Cup against Javon Evans. Jaida Parker is challenging Stephanie for the NXT Women's title in the opener. And we also had as well Stephanie defend the other title, the North American Championship, in the main event, which will be against Fallon Henley, the former NXT Women's North American Champion. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. See what the next move is going to be. All right. We start off with that first match. It was Jaida versus Stephanie. Very good way to kick off the show. Very solid. I know that Jaida was going to fight. She's going to put up the best fight she could possible, which she did. But we just knew that when it came down to it, that Stephanie was going to do everything she could to retain that belt. She said she was going to be a fighting champion, and she was not lying about that at all. She wasn't lying about that not one bit. And Jaida did everything she could. She had a good move. She had some good offense there. She had good things to advance because we knew she was coming for the belt. But, after Jaida hit the teardrop, Jordan Grace came out of nowhere to distract her. And then that allowed Stephanie Vaquer to counter the hypnotic and take it to a leg trap pin combination. And she got the pinfall. Afterwards, even though Stephanie had retained the championship in her first title defense of the night, she got jumped by her next match for the main event, Fatal Influence former champion Fallon Henley, and the rest of the Fatal Influence jump her. But a good way to kick off the whole show. Definitely did their thing. It was solid. That's some good points. Let's get on to the next match. Next match of the night, we had Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Egwe versus Hank and Tank. Wesley, of course, was cheering his boys on. Hank and Tank is getting better and better as a tag team. They're getting better. And I like DuPont Egwe too. They're good power. But DuPont Egwe, they were allowed to get the pinfall to get the victory. So that was good for those two as well. Good victory for those two men. Next match we had another title defense for Heritage Cup. And we know that Lexis King, he went to defend the cup against Javon Evans. Javon, this was actually one of my favorite matches of the night. Javon put up everything he could. We know that he was tired of being doubted. He had a lot of energy, a lot of animosity from Trick Williams and Obafemi last week. But I could say too that Javon is a future champion. He has some good flying moments. And Lexis King, of course, he has the heel tactics. But this was a good match, though. I like these two. They definitely wrestle well. Good offense from both Javon and
Like I
Lexus.
say, in this business, everybody always wants to find that Javon Evans.
High cross body.
Here we go.
So that was a good match by both of these men. Lexus King, he retained the title. We had Obafemi. He came in. He didn't forget the cutter that Javon gave him last week. Now Obafemi powerbombed Javon, and he powerbombed Javon, and he powerbombed him on the apron, and it caused Javon to lose the match in a cup by countout. So Javon did not. Still looks strong. He did not lose pinfall submission. He lost via countout. However, after the match was over, Oba and Javon was going at it. Then we saw Trick come in, and he accidentally trick shot Javon as he was aiming for Oba. Then the Dark Stable came out. Good finish. Good story here. Let's go on to the next match on the card. All right, we had a tag team action of the women. We had Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson of the Metaphor Girls. They was going against Tatum Paxley, Gigi Dolan. We know that if you watch TNA, these two girls had an issue since last week. Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan will be competing for the TNA Knockout Tag Team Championships. However, they interrupted Jakara and Lash, who came out at TNA Sacrifice to challenge the new champions, which is Heather and Ash by Elegance. But this match was not my favorite match, but I do like the finish when Gigi and Tatum headbutted Jakara and they got the pinfall victory. Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan defeats the Meta Girls. Let's get on to the next match. We had All Ego, Ethan Page versus Andre Chase. This match started from backstage. Both of these men, Andre Chase approached Ethan Page after Ethan Page got into it with KO Dixon and Connors. He told me he need to teach by respect, and they had a solid match. I actually like the match by these two men, and we know that Andre Chase still on that downside. He's still trying to rebound from Chase being disbanded. However, Ethan Page saw that Andre's just not there yet with momentum. He had a little momentum, but it was Ethan Page that got the victory over Andre Chase. So good victory for All Ego. Last but not least, we got the main event. Stephanie Vaquer defending her second championship, the Women's North American title, against Fallon Henley, former Women's North American champion. Now, these women here, they definitely put everything they could on the line. I like this match as well. They really sold off of Stephanie Vaquer a little bit being injured. They was unsure she was going to compete. Ava asked her backstage after her NXT Women's Championship match against Jaida, would she had to come out? She said, yeah. But the thing about it is, despite being attacked earlier and the interference from Fatal Influence in a matchup, Stephanie Vaquer was still able to defend the championship and retain it. And she got the pinfall victory over Fallon Henley, which she hit the SVP, if I said that move correctly. I think that's the move I was talking. That's the name of her move. When she takes the suplex and she does it over her knee. And however, once again, we saw Fatal Influence attack Stephanie Vaquer for the second time in the night until Jordan Grace came out and made the save. She did that. At the end of the day, we saw when she made the save, but it ended up being at the end of the day, which is going to be a future feud that I see coming. It will be Stephanie and Jordan. But other than that, though, that's all for NXT. NXT for this week. Next week's matches we got Ricky Starks versus Shawn Spears. They had an interaction backstage. Ricky Starks interviewed. But let's see. What do I grade this particular episode of NXT for this week? I would say it's a solid show as a whole. Solid show. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 show that it is. Solid show. So Definitely it had a little hiccups there, but I definitely saw the show as still doing a thing. I believe the viewership I heard for this week was close to 750,000 already, if I'm not mistaken. But that's what people are saying about NXT. NXT is still holding its own. I remember NXT came a long way. They always, used to have a major star from the main roster or a legend, a Hall of Famer, whatever the case may be. So they did good this week. NXT, we are on the road to stand and deliver. Let's keep that in mind too. Now on Raw and SmackDown, we talk about road to WrestleMania, but here in NXT, road to stand and deliver. So it's gonna be a lot of stories being told, no doubt about it. But let's see what people in the community are saying about this current episode of NXT. We got 79% that gave it an A, 11% gave it a B, 3% gave it a C, and 7% gave it a F. You guys let me know what's your voting on the show. But let's go over what went wrong and what went right with NXT because we gotta talk about that. First off, um, my opinion, I will say one thing I did see an issue with Jaida Parker losing against Stephanie. It doesn't help her. I know that Drag Race interfered in the matchup and it caused Jada to lose and lose her focus. But I think Jada be trying to build her up. This is really not going to help her, and I got a problem with that.
What's gonna happen? No. Words? No. You just made the list.
That's one thing I saw didn't like on NXT. That was an issue. And one thing I'm going to say, as much as I like Stephanie Vaquer, much as I like what she does in the ring, solid individual. I think Stephanie holding both belts, retaining both belts tonight doesn't help the women's roster. Now I know she's probably gonna lose the women's North American Championship at some point, or she vacates at the next episode. But I think she retained both belts as stat padding or other things that's going on backstage. For all we know, you never know. You never know. Somebody may come out and have some news about it. I won't be surprised if that happens either. But that again does not help the women's roster, and I have a problem with that too.
What's gonna happen? No. Words? No. You just made the list.
So that's another thing I saw with this episode. Two things I saw wrong. But however, let's go to what went right with this episode of NXT. One thing I will say we see coming soon. Keep an eye out. We gonna see not only Trick. I know he wants the NXT Championship back from Oba. We gonna see Javon Evans getting a mix of this. So Javon versus Oba versus Trick is coming soon. I can see this whole thing becoming a triple threat between three men, three big tall dudes, and large guys. Flying by Javon, the power of Oba, and Trick, a combination of everything. But I'm down for this. And I agree with this here. This is a plus in my book.
Yeet.
So that I see. But let's go over stuff that I did like on NXT as well. Another thing I did see. I will talk about this as well. I said this again. Now this match is next week. Like I said, Ricky Stark versus Shawn Spears. Do not be surprised if this man Ricky Starks, or Ricky Saints. I'm sorry. I'm still calling him Starks. Ricky Saints could be a future North American champion. I'm not going to say it's going to happen next week per se, but at some point, Ricky's going to win that championship, his first championship at NXT, and I'm on board for that.
Yeet.
All right, so I definitely see that. Another thing I see good with storyline going on. It was a segment backstage. Tony D, they was talking to Stacks and the family. Stacks told Tony, you could trust me. You could always trust me since we were young. I sense some tension in the family, and we could see Channing Stacks or Tony D'Angelo. One of these two guys are going to turn on each other. As Tony D's no longer the North American champion. We know something's going to unfold between these two. Expect a match between Tony D'Angelo and Stacks at some point. And I'm on board for this because this is good storytelling. Tony the Don of NXT and Stacks.
Yeet.
So this is good character, good characters here, good storyline. The families are very good, stable, very good story, everything. But that I definitely see happening. Do not be alarmed if it does go down. It will go down. Meanwhile, let's get to current news. Current news, we're talking about Saraya. If you guys haven't known already, the news going around is Saraya is no longer with AEW. Despite I heard she had just renewed a contract back September. It says Saraya, who previously worked wrestling on WWE as Paige, announces that she's leaving AEW in the debut episode of her podcast, Rule Breakers with Saraya. So she has a podcast too. She said, I just don't fit in right now. And she's been doing a lot of interviews about it. You know, she has a book coming out. She also said here, it's mutual. I love my time at AEW and I had such a blast with the girls there. I'll hold a special place in my heart. Tony was a great. AEW was great. I feel so lucky to be a part of family for a couple of years. Here's the 2025 WTF. What am I going to do myself into now? And then, you know, her book it just came out called Hell in Boots. She's doing signings for her books, you know. So we got to look forward to that. But other than that, though, I'm looking to her book as well. Check it out. If I don't check it out here, could be at the other channel, Pink Sports Circle. You never know. But other than that, though, that's the current news with Saraya. But other than that, though, we are going to switch gears. We are going to go into the bonus round, and we gotta talk about the women's division in NXT. Let's get into it because we definitely gotta talk about this. So give me a couple months to get this going. All right, we here. We back here, bonus round, guys. We gotta talk about it. Why women's roster is so overloaded, and we're talking about NXT. Um, Here's the problem. I know the women's roster has been the best women's roster for the past couple years. Thing about it is, it went from being good to great to now it's overloaded. It's too many people on the roster for that matter. That's what it's come down to. And like I said, we got a lot of women on the roster here, but thing about it is, it's just way too many women on the roster. It's just way overloaded. And honestly, the roster was already solid before Stephanie and Zarya and Jordan came on the scene. So we have to keep that in mind. The roster was already good. There's a lot of talent on there. Now I know that Roxanne Perez it has moved on. She's going to go to the main roster. Cora Jade, she's back. She was injured at the time for a while, but she came back. Also, we have not just those two. We have the Kalani Jordans. We have the Lola Vice. We have Jaida Parker, Lash Legend, Jakar Jackson for tag team. Gigi Dolan, who was out for a while, herself, and Tatum Paxley. So Ruka, who's a single star, a single talent, not a tag team with Zarya. We have lots of women there. I mean, this picture alone, we have lots of women there. We still got Carmen Petrovic. We have lots of other women. And I believe with all that, it makes it just overloaded. And here's the key factors why it was overloaded. Now, you guys hear me out on this one. I know I'm not trying to dog the women's roster saying it's horrible, great talent. I'm saying it's too much talent and there's not enough to place it. Think about it. We see this all the time. Because there's so many women on a roster. What's making this look so bad? We have to keep in mind, and this is why I said this before. One woman with 2 championships do not help the roster. And we're ready and we're headed to stand and deliver. We have to keep that in mind too. And I think that's a big problem because Stephanie, I like Stephanie Vaquer. I like everything. She's great. I'm not saying she's terrible talent, but her holding both belts do not help that roster. We know that out of all these women on the roster, one of them can hold that one of those belts. It only be fitting. So I really hope they do that. I really hope that's the case here because it does not help. It don't help at all for her to hold one belt. It don't help at all. Whether people like it or not, it does not help the roster. I don't think it makes any sense. I believe Stephanie has both belts. Now we know Julia. I know Julia. She was the champion. She had to take time off. They say for injury or visa. I think it's a visa because she didn't look injured to me. I spoke about this before. I believe that when it comes down to it, that I understand Stephanie was the next one in line, more likely to get the belt off Julia when the time came. But now she already had a championship when Julia was the NXT Women's Champion. That's the thing about that. And that's what makes it a big issue. But I will say that, Stephanie does bring a great audience in. I spoke about this before as well. But she cannot hold on to both belts. It does not help. And let me remind you guys, we was already when the roster was good where it was, we was already expect to get Julia. Julia, we already knew was coming because she debuted. We first saw her stand deliver last year, so we already knew that was coming. We knew at some point that was going to happen, so that don't surprise me at all. It's no shocker of anything of any kind. We knew at some point that's what it's going to come down to. So that's fine. We knew that would be the case here. We knew it would come down to it. But that's a problem. The problem is that first Julia, then it was Stephanie Vaquer. And this is right after that. So we prepared. We was a little more prepared for Stephanie too. But I believe the things that really pushed it over the top besides Stephanie, that outshine the roster, we had Zarya come through, who's now in the tag team. She was originally in a singles position. She was a single star, not a tag team, but a part of a solo. And then Jordan coming over, that really overloaded the roster. Now, if you ask me, since Jordan Grace did come on to NXT, I would say Jordan Grace outshined Zarya because Zarya and Jordan are they both powerhouses. Zarya was supposed to be the powerhouse of NXT, and now it's Jordan because Jordan's the bigger name. Obviously, she wrestled in NXT last year when she was the NXT battleground when she was the at NXT battleground when she was the TNA Knockouts champion. So that messed it up too. But when that did happen, the thing about it was is you got three big names. Now you have, which is like I said before, you have Julia. I know she's out right now. Then we have the champion, Stephanie and Jordan. These are the three names they're going to focus on the most when it comes to NXT. They're going to focus on those three women the most. They're going to be highlighted. Now, if you want to go to tag team, yes, we'll get tag teams. We'll get the Chikara and Lash. We'll get the Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. We'll get also Soruka and Zarya, who's a great tag team as well. When it comes to solo talent, it'll be these three women, but not Zarya, but Jordan, Stephanie, and Julia. That's what we focus on. It's just what I don't like about it. It took away from the women that was already here putting the work. Jaida Parker, Kalani Jordan. It take away from, Soru got put in the tag team. It takes away from Kara Petrovic, who's solid. It takes away from lots of women, Lola Vice, another solid talent. Some of these women were competing for the NXT Women's Championship or the North American Championship. Kalani being the first ever Women's North American Champion. So I think it just really hurts it with these three women. And I have nothing personal against, um, I know about Julia, but Stephanie and Jordan, them coming on really ruined it. Julia, we already knew, like I said before, but I think that's what's hurting the roster because it's we now you don't know what to do with all these women over here. Now we don't know what to do next with them, and that's what's going on. We see that time and time again, and it's a dynamic because they got women sitting around with nothing to do. That's the problem with that. So that's the thing I'm seeing right now. That makes it sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. But what can you do? What can you do at the end of the day? You know. Now, the thing about it is, if you notice, one result, it can help the women. It helps the women, but it's a result of an overloaded roster. Um, we can say this too, and it's been going on almost every week. And I spoke about this before. We see so much of this now; it's becoming common. I know it's a partnership and everything, but it still has to be mentioned. The thing I'm talking about right now that I want to mention, we see women on TNA Impact. And the reason we see these women on TNA Impact like we do for the past couple of months now, I'll say, the reason we see that so much now so common because this is a result of overloaded roster. We've been seeing Cora Jade on TNA Impact. We've been seeing Lash Jakara Jackson on Impact. They're doing this because it's too many women on NXT and they want to at least showcase the talent of the women on NXT. They're putting them on the TNA show Impact, which come on Thursdays. But at the same time, they really should be on NXT, showcasing their talent, but they really can't do that because of overloaded roster. It's either they go to TNA or they sit in catering, or maybe even possibly get released. And we don't want that either. But I'm saying this is going on because it's just a overloaded roster. And I don't know what NXT WWE, of course, is going to do with all these women because I believe my biggest fear, but it's also a reality. You got to face it. Some of these women are going to have to be released and go to TNA. It'd be best for their career. You cannot keep all these women under one roof. That makes sense. You can't keep all these women under NXT. Somebody's going to have to go because there's too many people in there. We got one woman walking around with 2 titles. Then we have her potential next challenger, Jordan. And then we have one that's going to come back, Julia. What are you going to do with the rest of the women on the roster? Julia's only one person. You still got a lot of women on the roster. Now, if you had 2 or 3 women out of a name, hypothetically, let's say Jordan Grace was out too. Let's say Jordan was out too and Julia, then you have a chance, but it's just too many women on the roster. They have more women on any roster, any other brand or pro wrestling promotion. So hopefully NXT figures that out. Other than that, that's all I have for why the women's roster is overloaded. Because definitely it's too full. I know you have Evolve and other stuff too, but it's just too full as a whole. You guys let me know what you think about that. You know, we talk about NXT Stephanie Vaquer defense both titles. That's all I have regarding the subject. You guys let me know what you think of NXT and of course this show of showcase of the women on NXT roster being overloaded. Check out the content Red Carpet Ring. Until then, guys, you already know what it is at this point. It's OUT.
Something happened this weekend, and I have been struggling with it since I retired, but this weekend gave me closure.
Wow.
It really did. Like, it was fun. Obviously, it was fun. I mean, you can't, doing this for as long as I have and